Welcome to the 360 Pulse podcast, the show where we explore the latest innovations in immersive technology, real-time situational awareness, and the future of panoramic imaging. I am your host, Jennifer Sertle, VP of Marketing at Circle Optics. Today's guest is actually someone that we work with regularly. It is Michael Robbins, the President and CEO of AUVSI, which is the world's largest association dedicated to advancing uncrewed systems, autonomy, and robotics across defense, civil, and commercial domains. He's a seasoned leader in government affairs and public policy, and he's been absolutely instrumental in advocating for critical regulatory updates, such as BVLOS, which is beyond visual line of sight operations, and also with decades of experience across Capitol Hill, trade associations, and also a Navy Reservist. His leadership bridges national defense, aviation safety, and emerging technology. He also has been a consultant in industry as well. So it's really nice to know someone that has actually worked in business as well as worked in policy. I just added that. He has successfully launched strategic initiatives like the Trusted Cyber Program and Green UAS to accelerate industry innovation. Robbins is passionate about aligning policy with the pace of technology to ensure U.S. leadership in autonomy and aerospace. And I had to glean just a few sentences from a remarkable, impactful background. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that very generous and gracious introduction.
No, it's wonderful.
Great to be here. Always enjoy working with you and the Circle Optics team.
That's great. Thank you so much. So from Capitol Hill to AUVSI, what are the guiding principles that have carried you through your leadership journey?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. I have a couple of sort of like three big buckets, and then within each of those buckets, there's a lot of things that are, nuanced for each job. But first and foremost, it's one of AUVSI's core values, and that's like having the one team mentality. That means different things in different places, but at the end of the day, it really means, supporting each other, motivating each other, celebrating each other, having a certain amount of grit, or another way of saying that would be like resilience or perseverance when things get hard, and then evaluating each other and holding each other accountability. And then obviously pushing that everyone is a leader in a team. So that one team mentality is something that AUVSI lives daily, and I'm very proud of the team and how they've rallied around that core value. Another key to my sort of leadership style is active and engaged communication. So active listening, articulating a vision, helping the team to find challenges and then work to overcome those. And then always being, reasonably transparent with the team. I think that's really important to building trust and maintaining trust. And then lastly, service, and that means different things, whether I'm in uniform or here at AUVSI. But the mission that I always give to whether I'm leading sailors or folks here at the AUVSI team is move to points of friction and solve problems. Like that's, and that's particularly true for AUVSI, because that is a trade association. That is our mission, is to help the industry solve problems. And that requires agility. That requires, really high level of execution. And then again, back to that accountability, and as a team, holding ourselves accountable to very, very high standards of execution and fiduciary responsibility. So that's kind of how I approach leadership.
We could actually have the entire program about that, because there's so many things I want to dive into. The last call that you and I had really was about the diversity of the AUVSI membership base. So the first question aligned with, please restate the AUVSI mission. And the question then would be, how do you align the priorities between defense, commercial, and civil stakeholders?
Yeah, I appreciate that question very much. The mission of AUVSI is to, as I said, sort of to move to points of friction and to help solve problems for the industry. And that is across all domain, air, ground, maritime, commercial, civil, defense. We have some common threads that we can pull among each of those different sectors. We have a demand problem where, across the defense segment of the industry, as well as the commercial side, there's just not a tremendous demand yet for buying systems. The reasons for those differ. On the DoD side, it's budget. It's not having autonomous and robotics built into the concepts of operations and tactics, trains, procedures yet. So we're working on that. On the commercial side, it's largely due to the lack of enabling regulations and having. I think we'll talk about BVLOS more, but sort of having the rules in place to allow for operations to grow and to scale. And then, of course, public acceptance as well. That's sort of a universal theme, where we want to get people comfortable with the technology, understand the safety of the technology and the benefits of the technology, and not see it as something as novel or scary. Instead, really something that they want to embrace. And of course, within each segment, there are unique challenges as well. And that means we do have a very broad mandate. There's a lot of different issues we work on because our membership is so diverse, but there's also opportunities to learn from one another as well. I was on a call yesterday with the CEO of a ground robotics company who's taking a lot of lessons from AUVSI's work in the small UAS space and applying that to the ground robotics space that's sort of emerging in the United States and globally. But there's a lot of lessons learned from a decade of challenges in the small UAS side that they can learn from. So I think as challenging as it can be to have a diverse membership, it also provides really unique and helpful learning opportunities as well.
And, when we release this, I also release it with a blog associated, and I'll be able to put some of your interviews in there because often Michael Robbins is called to C-SPAN and to other places when there are issues, particularly with UAS. And so he's a voice that you can constantly learn from. But the one I wanted to ask for, because this one is also related to Circle Optics, is you've been a major voice to push for BVLOS reform. And I would love from you to explain that better for our audience that may not know about BVLOS. And then also please talk about the current temperature in Washington and what would be meaningful progress. Like what are some key indicators that let you know that we are making a difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. And certainly one that's very important to large segments of the aviation industry. The beyond visual line of sight conditions right now are very limited. Most drone operations that are occurring in the United States for commercial purposes, not so those sort of separating like hobbyists, are operated under what's known as a Part 107. And that means you're operating a drone within visual line of sight. There are instances where companies have been able to apply and receive waivers from Part 107 to be able to operate beyond visual line of sight. But that is getting an exemption from the rule or a waiver from the rule from the FAA. And each one of those waivers or exemptions can be a very time intensive and labor intensive and ultimately resource money intensive process. It's not a great way of scaling drone operations and allowing for more complex and sophisticated drone operations to occur for really important missions, whether that's for public safety, search and rescue, using drones for infrastructure inspection, doing power lines or railroads or water pipelines. There's so many great use cases in infrastructure inspection, drone delivery, logistics, medical delivery. There's a lot of great use cases for using drones beyond the visual line of sight of the operator. And the safety case is definitely there. There's no doubt that these drones today in 2025 are exceptionally safe and able to conduct these operations at a level that more than satisfies the FAA safety mandates. What it really comes down to now is a regulatory problem. And each one of these waivers and exemptions, as mentioned, is a timely, resource-intensive process. So we've been advocating for a number of years to have a rule that operators can then adhere to, as opposed to seeking a exemption from the current rule that exists. So a new rule, Part 108, that would allow for beyond visual line of sight operations to occur. And this has been a long journey. And FAA stood up a aviation rulemaking committee on this back in 2021. That report from the committee was submitted to the FAA in 2022, I believe in March. So now we're about 3 years removed from that. and we're working very hard daily, hourly to get that final rule, across the finish line. And that will really unlock the drone industry in a very significant way. That will allow for much more complex, sophisticated operations to occur, operations that can actually be profitable, which will then allow for companies to invest significantly more into their drone operations, whether that's Walmart for drone delivery, or UPS for package delivery, or hospitals and pharmacies for delivery of medical devices and pharmaceuticals, energy companies and other critical infrastructure for inspection, public safety for search and rescue, and drones as a first responder. All of these use cases are occurring now, but in a very limited way. That will, having a rule to adhere to, will unlock these in a much greater way. The environment. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, like, the hardest part in my world, because now I've been 3 years at Circle Optics and 3 years in Genius, New York, and in this environment, the general community doesn't really understand the life-saving capabilities of this technology. And I was so excited to hear you mention some of them. And I think, like, we as storytellers need to do a better job just on helping our communities understand the life-saving capabilities of this technology. So keep going, but I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that is a big part of the story that we're telling in DC right now, is we're pushing to get the final rule published. And it's not just the economic benefits, but it's the societal benefits as well, because that is really key. And that's a key to public acceptance, and public acceptance is key to regulatory change.
Can you say that one more time? I think that sentence is huge.
Yeah. The public acceptance is very much a big part of driving regulatory change, because if people don't understand the good that drones are going to bring to them, and not just from an economic standpoint, but from a societal benefit standpoint, they're not going to be supportive of more drones. And if the public sentiment's not in favor of it, then the regulatory environment's not going to allow for expansion. So we do spend a lot of time talking about the positive benefits of drones, from both a societal good as well as an economic perspective. And I think our message is definitely landing. It's been a refreshing a couple of months, having very, very excellent conversations with leaders at all levels. We've got really strong support from Capitol Hill. We've had that for some time, and we've got really strong support within the FAA, both in the last administration and the current administration. So there's bipartisan support for getting to BVLOS, but the regulatory process, the bureaucracy, has stood in the way. It's not a safety case. It's really a bureaucratic challenge. And we're now starting to really chop away at that and seeing real progress being made. I met with the FAA administrator, the acting FAA administrator on Tuesday, Chris Rocheleau, who's a great friend, and a tremendous aviation leader who understands the societal benefits of drones at a very sophisticated level. And he is motivated to get the Beyond Visual Line of Sight rule done, and get it done soon. So I'm anticipating we're going to see a draft of the rule published in the very near future. That's sort of the next step. The FAA will publish a notice of proposed rulemaking. That will be a draft rule. There will be a comment period on that, probably 60 to 90 days, where anyone in industry, the public, whomever, can comment on the rule and offer feedback on what the FAA got right, what they might consider changing. And then there will be a period where the FAA will adjudicate all of those comments, make some changes to the rule before they publish a final rule. And we're going to be pushing very, very hard to keep that timeline between comments and adjudication and final relatively short, so that we give the FAA time to perfect the rule, but we also don't let bureaucracy stand in the way of getting to a final rule, and we try and get that published in 2025.
And why that's relevant for Circle Optics in particular, and I just want everyone to hear this, Michael Robbins is not endorsing Circle Optics. But I just wanted to make sure that's clear. But what I want to say is that we have a camera system called Pegasus that allows drone operators to see 4 miles beyond the line of sight. But it's super hard as a designer of technology to not have set specs. so that we can actually make sure our technology is in line with FAA regulations. So being able to have clarity helps Circle Optics in particular and all innovators ensure that they're designing for regulation. So that's so important to us. So thank you so much for that. I want to pivot now to some really macro initiatives that really show how in the pulse you are, not only with industry, but also the world and Gen X and Gen Z, right? Is that you've created the Trusted Cyber and Green UAS initiatives. So I would love you to explain what both of those are, and then really, how are they going to shape industry standards?
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much. So we launched our effort into the cybersecurity space about 3 years ago. First with sort of like a listening tour with some education, and trying to get an understanding of the opportunities, the challenges, because we really had a very core belief that we as an industry need to have security at an equal footing as safety, because we're at risk if we don't do security right, in the same way we're at risk if we don't do safety right. And sort of in the aftermath of the Colonial Pipeline hack, where the industry was not prepared with proper cybersecurity standards, had a very massive attack within the pipeline industry, and then had to deal with the repercussions of that, both from an economic standpoint, but also from a regulatory standpoint, where then cybersecurity rules were imposed upon the pipeline industry that were extremely stringent, and the industry was struggling to meet. We didn't want to find ourselves in a situation like that, where there's a high profile or even a low profile hack of a drone system, and something bad happens, and then there's an over-regulation of the industry. So we try to be proactive, and we launched our Trusted Cyber program with the intent of bringing industry, government, academia together to work on standards with a small s. So not like a standards body like ASTM or RTCA, but sort of industry consensus standards around what makes sense for autonomous robotic systems. And Green UAS was our first product in that. And Green UAS is cyber standards for drones. And it involves a alignment with the Defense Innovation Unit of the Pentagon's Blue UAS program. So it has a cyber penetration test, as well as a hardware review to ensure there's nothing in there that's vulnerable to foreign malign activity. And then we also added, beyond what Blue had done, we added a corporate cyber hygiene review, as well as a remote connectivity examination, because Blue UAS programs are not connected. There's no Bluetooth, there's no Wi-Fi, but that doesn't really work as well for commercial entities that do need that connectivity. So we added that remote connectivity piece. We launched it about 2 years ago, and we were early to market. There's no doubt about that. When we launched, there was a lot of buzz. There was a lot of excitement about it, but not a lot of follow through from industry, because no one was really requiring cybersecurity standards. No one was really requiring anything like Green UAS. And now, 2 years later, in large part because of the changing nature and evolution of cybersecurity standards broadly, not unique to our industry, but just sort of within the United States and globally, a greater, deeper understanding of the risk associated with not having investment into cybersecurity. We're seeing now a lot more demand for our Green UAS program, and we're also building out the broader Trusted Cyber program more. We brought on a brilliant individual from the industry to lead this for us, named Casey O'Connor, who's not only taken Green UAS to the next level, but has also begun work to build out a ground cybersecurity certification under the Trusted Cyber program, and we're having early conversations about the maritime domain as well. So as the landscape evolves, as the threat environment evolves rapidly, there's going to be a increased demand on companies to showcase and validate their cybersecurity and their hardware bill of materials validity, and that's really what our Trusted Cyber program can help them do, is to showcase that they're doing things properly, that they've made the right investments into security, and that their systems can be trusted as the Trusted Cyber sort of implies.
Such significant work. I'm excited to see you in Houston, May 21st through the 24th. Can you tell everyone about Exponential?
Yeah, absolutely. So Exponential is the hallmark event for the autonomy industry broadly. And just real quick, the dates are actually May 19th through 22nd.
Oh, okay. So, May 19th through 22nd.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I like to keep the airs in just so people know that I'm not a bot, you're not a bot. This is an authentic, real conversation. So I'm going to be there earlier. So that's when I'll be there. Thank you.
But it's my favorite week of the year. I think for a lot of people in the industry, it's their favorite week of the year because it's a tremendous opportunity to come together with 10,000 or so of your closest friends and colleagues and competitors, and it's really the gathering place for the industry. We will have a significant show floor, probably around 100,000 square feet of exhibit space, everything from components to full platforms, air, ground, maritime. We're excited to have a full electric vertical takeoff and lift, fully autonomous aircraft on the show floor this year, which I think is going to generate a lot of buzz. We get a lot of international pavilions, so it's not just U.S. We will have pavilions from Germany and Spain and Taiwan, and those are all very exciting as well. So. In addition to the show floor, we also have 4 full days of conference programming. We've typically done 3. We added an extra day on Monday just because there's so much demand for various tracks. And those, we have technical tracks, we have data tracks, we have policy tracks. Basically, something for everybody who's interested in the uncrewed systems, autonomy, and robotics space. And then we have 3 days of keynotes as well, where we have a big theater with seats a couple thousand people, and we have just really some of the greatest and best minds in this space that come and offer their thoughts on the industry. And we're very excited this year to have the deputy commander of U.S. Special Operations Command. I'm going to come and talk about how SOCOM is using autonomy and how that's going to be even greater part of their warfighting plan going future, because robots don't bleed, and that is a great way to sort of be the tip of the spear for the warfighter. We've got a speaker, Major General Link from Army Futures Command, which is based in Texas, coming to talk about how the Army's thinking about using autonomous systems as well. We've got the FAA administrator, who I met with on Tuesday, Chris Rocheleau. He's going to be coming and speaking on Wednesday. We're really excited to have him. And then we've got some other just terrific speakers as well. Jim Vandehei, the founder of Axios, which is a big media company here in DC. Sue Gordon, the former deputy principal director of national intelligence, someone who I admire and look up to, just a brilliant mind. So it's going to be an awesome event. Social events at night, really important conversations during the day. Everybody loves Exponential.
And there's 3 distinct reasons why I love it. One is that I am the vice president for the Empire State region, just letting you know nationally that if you want to know who is a chapter leader near you, just let me know and I can let you know. It's a great community. There's also the Genius New York Circle Optics will actually be at the New York Pavilion. And we get to see our cohort there as well as be there. And the third reason is that our Chief Research Officer, Andy Kurtz, is actually one of the speakers. He's going to be talking about multi-camera systems to enable panoramic situational awareness. So we are excited to see him on the stage. And then I think it's either a third or fourth reason is I have a new friend, Nadeem Sayed, who just started a company called Air Guide. And what they're doing is they are actually kind of creating some parameters and some governance for airways in the sky. And I'm excited to meet him for the first time in person, although we've had several conversations. So Nadeem, this is a nice shout out to you. I do want to go back to your history a little bit, because one of the things that you talked about in your core principles in the beginning was the idea of grit. And I want to leave with grit simply because I think this time in history requires us all to dig a little bit deeper for personal resilience. So I want to leave with my last question for you is, how has your experience in the Navy Reserve informed your approach to both advocacy and leadership under pressure?
Sure, thank you. And just real quick before I get to that, Air Guide joined AUVSI this week as an advocacy level member. So thanks to Nadine, and we're excited to get them on board. I'm from Detroit, so it's a gritty town. It's an ethos that we live and breathe every day. Although I've been in DC for almost 25 years now, like I still very much consider myself a Detroiter, and that very much has forged how I approach every day and how I lead teams. That perseverance that's required to succeed. I mean, nothing in Detroit was easy growing up. We were very poor. We lived in a trailer park. We bounced around from different homes, and nothing was handed to me. I was the first person in my family to go to college. Things were always hard, working multiple jobs. But that made me, a lot stronger as a person. That resiliency that's required to be successful now translates really well into this industry, because everything that we're trying to do is hard. Launching, new products, in the uncrewed systems domain is hard, because you're disrupting things that have been done a certain way for many decades. People are not used to seeing systems operating without a human, in direct control or on board. So, that sort of persistence, I think, lends itself very well to leading an industry that requires a lot of grit and requires a lot of patience, but patience, like while actively pushing, and actively sort of engaging and trying to drive change for the better. And then from the Navy side, everything that the U.S. faces right now globally is a challenge. Like the global situation that we're in, without getting into a whole lot of detail here, it's a tenuous time, to be candid, with a nuclear North Korea, Iran moving in that direction, an ongoing illegal invasion into Ukraine by the Russians, China with continued, they would call them drills, but really they're rehearsals for a blockade and a invasion into Taiwan. All of that leads us to a very dangerous world, which means in the reserve we have to be ready to fight and win tonight. We have to maintain readiness, and be ready to go when called upon. So that definitely is something I think about daily, and bring that sort of resiliency and grittiness into leadership here at AUVSI.
And how it applies to every listener out there is that where we are is an era of readiness to learn. Everyone needs to be willing to learn. And the hardest part about learning in the United States is that people are kind of clumsy, that, we have imagination that we should be good at things. And when you learn new things, you do start out a little bit clumsy. And so my call out is readiness and courage for people to be learners and to be brave enough to be clumsy as they are acquiring these new skills, learning about these new technologies, and being more personally agile as well. Pretty heavy. This might be the most one of the most significant, relevant programs that we've had, because many are inspirational, but this is really about business. And you have been listening to Michael Robbins, President and CEO of AUVSI. I'd like to express my gratitude to our partners and supporters who make this podcast possible, including the Institute of Optics, Genius New York, Luminate Accelerator, AFWorks, Cider Technologies, Archangel Imaging, and AUVSI. A special shout out to our producer, Scott Fitzgerald, here in the heart of optics in Rochester, New York. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to 360 Pulse and stay tuned for more conversations at the intersection of immersive technology, innovation, and real-time situational awareness. You can always reach me at jennifer@circleoptics.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Blue Sky. I'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for future guests. Thank you for joining us.